Welcome to Modern Leadership Live, where we're creating collaborative conversations to connect our company culture and our world community. And today we're focused on bold leadership. And I couldn't think of anybody more bold and more connected to that concept than Ellen Bogdanoff, who started her own insurance company and had that before the age of 21. And after 16 years of that, she went to law school, and then she decided to become a Florida state representative as well as the Florida state Senate. She's currently a lawyer at Becker, concentrating on government and business. So welcome, Ellen, to have a cool conversation with us about leadership. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule
Thank you, Nina.
to bring more thought.
I'm here at 6:30 in the morning.
I know, right? I appreciate you waking up so early. So Ellen, one thing that occurred to me and something that when I first met you that I really liked is that you have a way of really articulating what you think there needs to be more of. And so I'd love to hear what you think there's needs to be more of today as it relates to leadership.
Well, I think, when I look at leaders today, and remember, my world is the political world, right? And it's people who are not afraid to make tough decisions or to step outside their comfort zone and do what's necessary to move, the country or the state or the local government forward. A lot of people in government in particular have a tendency to kind of look to the next election versus look 10, 15, or 20 years out. So, from my standpoint, I believe that, a lot of the changes that, would define bold leadership are people who are willing to look beyond the next election and say, what can we do to help kind of change the world, have long lasting impact?
Oh, I love that. So the best leaders are ones who make bold decisions. Hi, Brianna. Make bold decisions, and those who look long term, not just what's in it for me, so that I can get elected next, but what's really best, what's sustainable for years to come.
Right.
I love that so much. Do you find in the government and your day to day, we're working with business leaders as well? Do you find what gets in the way of that? What gets in the way of people thinking like their legacy or long term, what's best for the next generation? What are old paradigms that get in the way?
I think it's extremely simple. I think it's a lot of times it's the noise on the far left or the noise on the far right that kind of drives the conversation when in fact the vast majority of the people are right there in the middle who just simply want things to happen. And I think they have a disproportionate voice. They have a disproportionate voice in the media. They have a disproportionate voice in the ear of a lot of elected leaders. That's why a lot of these interest groups that have, work with a small percentage of people end up kind of moving an agenda versus, I would say, a bigger agenda that is going to impact a lot more people. And that was probably one of my biggest frustrations when I was elected. I tried to work on bold things that I felt like were just people would always say, are you conservative? Are you liberal? Are you moderate? I said, give me the issue. I'm pragmatic. I want to fix things. I want to fix things that I see are wrong. And I'll tell you what my position is, and you tell me what you think I am.
Well,
Because
so there's so much in what you just said about standing for what really listening, curiosity about what's really being wanted, and not putting things in boxes like hierarchical, you know, check boxes, and really listening deeply to what's being wanted and what's necessary, and knowing who you are and saying, I'm pragmatic. I'm looking at what's best. Is this what's best? And really having those bold conversations that are maybe difficult for people to really dig deep and think about, what am I really valuing here? Am I just getting positional because maybe my communities left or right, or am I really thinking for myself and being pragmatic about what I really believe? That's so good.
well, there's real problems in the world that need to be fixed. And they're not, it's like, let's talk about right now, the pandemic. How did that become a partisan issue? How did people getting sick and dying become a partisan issue?
Yes.
So everything in the world, and in large part, I believe it's due to social media because now everybody has a voice. whether you have experience or knowledge or not, everybody has a voice. And I feel like everything in the world today has become partisan.
Oh, thank you. Emily McHugh said, I'm actually on my way to bed, a bit of an all-nighter, but couldn't resist clicking. Very, very interesting. Oh, that's great. Thanks, Emily. Emily is a good example too. Someone who like was in a particular business and she turned her whole business around and started creating masks for, for various organizations. And she's done really, really well doing like personal
Well, you have
equipment.
to continue to be creative. You have to continue to morph because if you don't, and you're kind of stuck where you are or you're in your comfort zone. That's what I'm saying. You have to step outside your comfort zone. I try to do that every day in very small ways. It's hard, it's hard. It's very comfortable to be in your own skin with what you know and what you feel like doesn't create risk. Lots
There's
of diverse.
there's a moment before you decide to do something bold that is uncomfortable or unfamiliar. What is it that personally leads you to say, I'm taking this risk? Is it self-confidence or is it that you know it's going to be worth it? What happens for you?
Well, I always say my background is risk management, and I kind of look at things and say, what's the end game, right? And what's the risk if I do or I don't do this? And if I can deal with the risk of what happens if I do it, then I'll do it if I feel it's the right thing. And I think that is also a judgment call. In business, you kind of get to make a lot of, I don't want to say mistakes, but you get to try a lot of things, and if it doesn't quite go your way, you can have a chance to fix it and move on. In my world in politics, sometimes I don't want to use the politician's name, but we call it the moment. The moment you do something, and no matter how small it is, it changes the course of your future.
Wow.
So I think what you have to do is, because they are very different worlds. Although I would like government to act a little bit more like business, but you can't take politics out of politics, and that's what I've always said to people. Stop trying; it's not going to work. But even when I was in the legislature, if I did something, which I did a lot, which was outside what people would call the traditional norm of being in the party that I was, I said, like, what's the downside? So I don't win the next election. I'm okay with that. So if you're okay with the downside, go for it.
So it sounds like maybe this is the answer to the next question is what bold predictions you have in the future for leadership might be that we're as leaders, as really modern leaders who are making the world a better place, are people who are looking at risk and taking calculated risks regardless of a personal setback because there's faith, it sounds like, in the general community for you to be able to lead forward. And it sounds like it's what's needed. I feel, but I'd love to hear from you. Like, if there's a bold prediction that you have for our future that you think this is going to be the norm. This collaborative way of doing politics and business. It sounds like
No,
that
I
our next
I think
step.
what happens is I think we get a narrative. There was kind of an interesting that I watched, which was actually mind blowing. Which is there was a show on, I think it was Netflix, that
Social
talked
dilemma.
Social Dilemma. You're right. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name. It basically, we right now are getting material that suits our, of what we want to hear. Right. It helps us with our own narrative. I think there are enough intelligent people in this world to say enough is enough.
Mm.
And I'm not interested in that narrative because I know things can be better. I know things can be different, and I meet them every day. And there are young people out there that are going to find their own voice, and they're going to see what's right and wrong, and they're going to make it happen. I have absolute confidence in that because I meet them every day.
I love that, Ellen. Thanks so much for joining us. I know you're my personal go-to for business and all things government. So I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule today and spreading the good word. I think a lot of people are going to resonate with this. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.